Greetings. You're listening to Rebels Remembered, featuring Caitlin DeFord and Kelsey DeFord.
Hello, I am Kelsey DeFord.
I am Caitlin DeFord.
And this is Rebels Remembered. This is our podcast. This is episode 3. So we're going to be talking about episode 3. Technically it'd be episode 2 if you put part 1 and part 2 together of Sparkle Rebellion. But, so I'm just going to read through description of Star Wars Rebels. It basically takes place 5 years before A New Hope. And it tells about the rebellion's beginnings while the Empire is spreading throughout the galaxy. It takes place in if you're a nerd about timelines, it's 5 BBY, which is 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, so before the Death Star first explodes. And it is 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, if you are more into the prequel and you have a better understanding than 5 BBY.
Yeah.
Because that can get confusing. So this is Droids in Distress. This originally aired on October 13th, 2014. And according to StarWars.com, the synopsis for this episode is: the rebels intercept a shipment of weapons intended for the Empire. They accidentally end up hosting a pair of droids. This episode was written by Greg Weisman, who's pretty much known to the animation world.
Yeah.
Creator of Young Justice, Gargoyles. He wrote Kanan the Last Padawan, which the comic, if you have not read it, I would suggest it. It's really good. He also worked on Disney's Witch, which
I find it so funny that, like, you know, there's this whole thing, like, Star Wars was bought by Disney, and there's that whole thing about it, and it's kind of funny that Greg was one of the first pivotal writers when this was, and he did Disney stuff in the past. I thought that was interesting.
He was also an executive producer on this series, along with Simon Kinberg, who is also known throughout the film world now. He's kind of, he's always busy writing things for mainly science fiction, and I don't want to say mainly, and Dave Filoni, of course, who's currently the chief creative officer. He's got that big title now at Lucasfilm. He has for a while now.
His hat got bigger.
Yeah, his cowboy hat got a little bit bigger, but and this was directed by Stuart Lee. And of course, Stuart and Stephen Lee directed the first pilot. So basically, we're going to kind of do it a little bit differently. We're just going to start off talking about having a conversation. So if you're following along, if you watch the episodes, this is sort of like not a repeat, but just to discuss while you're rewatching the episodes with us. So basically, this episode starts out with the Ghost crew running low on supplies. And we discussed this the last episode. They need to eat, they need food, they need credits, which is, I guess credits is...
Money
in the Star Wars.
What's it look like?
It looks like,
I'm really curious.
Like
I'm
gold,
not sure. I can't remember what it looks like.
Like squares or something.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's a physical representation of Bitcoin, guys.
Bitcoin technically doesn't.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not real.
Physical thing. Anyway, they're having to meet up with Vizago, who is an arms dealer, shady guy. We met him the first in the pilot, the part 1 and part 2 of Sparkle Rebellion. And in the meantime, they run into C-3PO and R2-D2. And that's when they're taking is it a shuttle or something? They take a shuttle or something to Gorel. I'm trying to get the shipment for him.
I was trying to go into this episode with the mindset that I've never seen it. And when you first watch this episode, they're like, we're running low on credits. Okay, here's a job we can do. You don't really find it out until much later in the episode what it is they're doing. Like, what's in the crates, what's in, So when you're first watching, you're like, wait, why are they on this shuttle? Why are they, like, implementing what they're doing, which I thought was interesting. You don't find out later, like, what the job actually is.
Yeah. Basically, they're on the shuttle to Gorel, and they run into Minister Tua, who I brought up in one of the episodes. This is the actual version of her, not the copy of her that you frequently see in backgrounds.
In the crowd shots.
Voiced by Kath Soucie, who, not unknown, again, to the animation world and voiceover. And she's got 2 droids with her that are on they say Imperial, it's really Senate business. I think
Okay.
that gets kind of confusing because they're sort of accompanying her because they're Senate. They belong to the Senate.
Yeah.
And you have R2 and C-3PO, and he's basically a translator for her because she's sitting next to an Aqualish, which I had to look that up because normally I see creatures in Star Wars, and I'm just like, okay.
I'm just like, the one with the big eyes.
Yeah.
The one with the big, no
The-
mouth.
My favorite one is the arm creature. Looks like he's got a big bicep for a face. I don't know what the name of that one is. Anyway, this Aqualish has this shipment, and she's needing it, but she also needs a translator.
Because he can't speak English.
Right,
Or
you can't,
whatever it is in Star Wars.
Whatever English is in Star Wars, I guess.
It's basic.
Basic.
Yeah. Wow, I pulled that
How'd
out.
you know that?
I remembered that all of a sudden. Yeah, and they're on this transport to Gorel. That's where they're headed. And that's actually the first time it's mentioned. We're not going to Lothal. We're going to another planet. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's this plan to... It's kind of interesting. Everybody has their role.
Their role that's played out.
Ezra's there with Chopper. Chopper's annoying him. And then Kanan says, hey, keep the thing under the control. Like, well, he's my droid, and if my droid's up here, then that means those two. And he basically does it, like, as a ploy so that Sabine and Zeb can do their thing. And
get the information of where the shipment's being held. Because it's interesting, Sabine, we saw her speak Wookiee, or understand Wookiee, in the first 2 episodes, and now she has some knowledge of Aqualish, which is interesting. I don't know how many languages she knows, but yeah, when you're first watching that, I always get confused, even when I rewatch it. I'm like, why is Kanan acting like he doesn't know Ezra? Duh. Like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, they're pretending not to know each other.
Then, what is the name of the little droid that's driving the shuttle?
The name of the droid, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, that's a good tidbit, is RX-24, voiced by Paul Rubens, who's no longer with us, but he actually voiced this droid that he's voicing is nicknamed Rex, because RX together it looks like it,
I wonder if that's homage to the actual Rex.
That's what I was wondering. I couldn't find anything, but he voiced the original Rex in Star Tours at Disneyland and Disney World. There's a new version of him called R3X at Uga's Cantina, which we were happy to get a reservation. Thank you, Caitlin, when we went on our Disney World trip recently.
Beginning of February. Great.
And still voiced by Paul Rubens, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's piloting that version of that droid in this episode is piloting the ship that is taking them to Gorel. However, I don't know if people still refer to this droid in the parks as Rex, because we've already got Captain Rex.
Yeah, we got another guy roaming around.
So we've got another Rex running around. So,
but yeah, so he tells them, okay, well, the droids have to go to the back. And Minister Tua is upset by that because she needs them to translate for her. And he says, well, I'm following Imperial guidelines. Which, I don't know how other people... I don't know. How are you on droids? I feel like they're misrepresented sometimes, and they're not... Because I know they're technically robots, in a way.
It's really... Yeah.
They're more, to me, they're so human that I feel so bad for them on many occasions.
Yeah, and I don't think that was really addressed until Solo, which was not received well by audiences. But there's that one droid in there that's like trying to start, I don't know if you've seen Solo, like trying to start a droid revolution because they're being oppressed. And I gotta think about it, it's like,
I was so for that too.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense because you look at how they're treated. I mean, I don't know. It's like they're treated almost as second class in a way.
It's like, well, who cares? They're not human. I'm like, I don't know. CPO seems pretty human to me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so they're gone to the back of the shuttle, and that's when Sabine learns that the shipment is being held in Base 7, but she tells them Base 17.
She tells Minister Tua that they're being held in Base 17. Now, at this point, you're probably like, what? What's in these crates? Like, what are we after? Like, that still hasn't been answered at this point. Well,
yeah, no, and then after they get off the shuttle, everybody's done their part, and you're like, where's Hera? And
yeah,
she's there and goes, do you guys have any idea what Viziago has us stealing yet?
Like, no one's asked that question yet.
She says that. I'm like, wow, if you're watching this first time, you're like, yeah, what are they doing? What's the end goal here? And then it's eventually revealed that they're
T7 ion disruptors.
Yeah.
And they can they can destroy an entire ship of some kind. I don't know. It's what Sabine says. I don't know if she means like a big ship or a TIE. I don't know. But they were banned by the Senate, which is interesting because the Senate is still operating, I guess. They were
banned by the Senate, but now they're wanting them.
The Empire's wanting them, but I don't know. It gets really confusing because like the Senate is technically still existing, but I don't know.
You could do a whole paper on what was the Senate doing during this Imperial.
Like do they still need them to like so they can tell people, hey, look, we kept the Senate. We're not so bad.
Yeah.
But
we're not following our own rules.
Yeah. Oh, the really cool part that I like in this episode, I just love the way it's animated and the lighting is where it has Ezra force jumping through the little shuttles that are passing by and, again, crawling through a vent, which he does quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And his job is to get to Base 7 and unlock the door.
Unlock the door, yeah. And we always joke that, me and Caitlin do, that if there was ever a Star Wars video game, you would need Ezra to unlock the doors.
Unlock doors.
If Chopper's not available, you would have to have Ezra.
Kind of like, I don't know if you guys have ever played Lego Star Wars, but it always frustrated me. You're playing that game, and you come to a locked door, and it goes, and R2 pops up, or 3PO, which means you need a droid to open said door. It's so frustrating. Like, that would be Ezra's job.
Yeah, especially if you're not playing the free play version, you have to find the droid first. You can't just switch to them.
Mm-hmm.
So after we learn that they're T7 disruptors, this is when we learn about Zeb's past.
Yeah, he's very apprehensive when he sees them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sabine says these were banned, and he's like, because they could destroy a shipment of whatever, destroy ships, and he says, no, they weren't banned for that.
Mm. And then, of course, we learn from Hera later about what transpired, but we also get to see some really cool fighting from Zeb.
Yes.
He pulls out that bow rifle and ignites it. It has like two ends of like purple electricity at the end. And I first saw that and I was like, oh good, I know what that is now. Because the whole time I was like, a stick? I don't know. Because normally he just uses his muscles to do things.
Picks up the two stormtroopers by their helmets and chucks them.
Oh yeah.
Then Minister 2 realizes she's been duped. They're not in Base 17, they're in Base 7. Goes to find the rebels, like we just talked about. Zeb gets into a fight with them. And then what I thought was funny is that, I think this is the moment where C-3PO says that they were attacked by thieves.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because it follows the timeline of after Revenge of the Sith, after Anakin went to the dark side, C-3PO's memory was wiped of that. They didn't wipe R2's. I don't know why they didn't. But he still thinks that he's being loyal to the Senate by helping them locate these shipments. But yeah, him and R2 both end up on the Ghost. And C-3PO is not happy about being around a bunch of...
And what's funny is Kanan's like, well, we got these two Imperial... He refers to them as Imperial droids. Mm-hmm. Which anybody that... Of course, he doesn't know who they are. But any Star Wars fan's going, what? They're not Imperial droids.
What's going on? I'm so confused.
And then there's that moment with Zeb and Kanan where he tells him, hey, I don't want those going to Vizago. I want them out of circulation. And Sabine says that the plan was to mass produce them on Lothal. Which, and we won't get to probably till in the later seasons, where Lothal kind of becomes a central hub for, to me, Imperial manufacturing.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So it's interesting that they were thinking about manufacturing these disruptors on Lothal. They never get a chance to, but it's interesting that it's mentioned.
And of course we get Hera always being the space mom that always has to talk about, Ezra is not understanding why Zeb is being so mean to him, and she explains, these weapons destroyed his entire planet. Basically, not his planet, but the people that live on the planet. That he's not... Like Lasats that he is not, there's not a whole lot of them left.
Oh, and while they're on the Ghost, on their way to Vizago, Sabine mentions that she tells Kanan, or translates, because she can understand R2 as well, he says that their real mission was to also get the disruptors and that their master will pay handsomely for their return. That's what she tells Kanan.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, okay. Because she tells him that because Kanan's like, well, we can sell these 2 droids to get more credits.
Yeah.
Which you don't find out later who they're talking about.
Yeah.
In terms of their master. And while they're aboard the Ghost, one of the most controversial, in my opinion, was the moment where C-3PO rats them out.
Oh, you didn't like that?
They were on their way to Vizago, and he's like, hey, help us. We were captured. We were on our mission. We were trying to, do our mission for the Senate, and that... I don't know. It was like C-3PO talking to the Empire to come rescue them.
You have to remember that he doesn't really understand.
I guess because my brain of him is New Hope, him and R2 are running from...
Yeah.
Aboard the rebellion ship.
Because, again, we don't know how much he knows. Does he know the Empire's bad?
Okay.
If he's with the Senate, probably hasn't been told that. In fact, that begs the question, how many senators know the Empire's bad? If there are any senators left. I mean, the ones that are still left.
So, 3PO rats them out to none other than Agent Callus, who tells them, okay, we're going to come, quote-unquote, rescue you. Help us on the way.
Yeah, and then Vizago gets mad because he got half a shipment by the time that Callus showed up. So he paid him, but he wasn't the full amount, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then we learned that Callus has a connection to Zeb in a way.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the planet, and he says he gave the order to use the disruptors on the Lasats of Lasan, the planet they live on.
So it also kind of gives a little bit of backstory to Callus, too.
Yeah, what he was doing during that time. And of course, once he reveals it to Zeb, Zeb just goes, ate crap, because I would too. I mean, yeah. I would too.
I mean, can you imagine, the man that gave the order to basically exterminate your entire family and everybody on your planet is standing in front of you?
Yeah.
How would you expect someone to take that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a really cool fight sequence with them because then to add insult to injury, he's got a bow rifle too. He took it
and he's like, I took this from one of the Lasats or whatever.
Oh yeah, then it's revealed that the only people that get those on Lasan are honor guards.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's like they're soldiers or they're military army or something, but then it's revealed Zeb's one,
So, I don't want to get into this, but if I was into fanfiction, when I hear the word honor guard, I think of royalty. How cool would it be if on Lasan they had a royal palace, had a royal family, and he was one of the soldiers in the military?
That would be cool.
That would be so freaking awesome. I want that.
I'm sure on Wikipedia probably has a whole article about
Lasan. I'm sure that's not right, but when I first heard it, I was like, oh, he worked for a royal family on his planet. That's where my brain went. It's probably not. It's probably more of a military type deal.
But yeah, you have this whole fight sequence with them. In the meantime, you've got Hera and Kanan trying to take down these walkers
that appear.
Really cool part with Sabine with the with help from R2 to blow up the disruptors by doing something. I can't remember what it was. Setting to overdrive or
overload.
Overload, yeah, something like that.
So the fight between Callus and Zeb, it's animated really well. I thought until Kelsey told me. We'll have to find a picture of this and post it on Twitter. Or X, or whatever it is. There's a part where Callus and him are fighting, and he almost does a breakdance.
Okay, so it's not the whole sequence. I think the sequence is pretty animated pretty well, but there's just one move. I call it a move. It literally looks like a dance move that Callus does, where he spins on the ground. And I guess it was just so animated so fast. It just looks like you could take that video, that portion of the animation, and just put breakdance music with it, because that's what it looked like.
Yeah, somebody do that. Go in that scene, find that scene, clip Callus out of there, and put him on a
dance floor,
and change the music.
Because I don't know, sometimes the animation is very fluid, and other times it's just so quick that it almost I don't want to like diss the animators.
Looks flimsy a little bit.
Yeah, I would say like flimsy or just almost like an in-between kind of job. And I don't want to, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to get the in-betweeners mad, but.
Let's see. Oh, one of my favorite lines. I'm a big 3PO fan. One of my favorite lines is when the Empire, I'm going back a little bit, they show up to stop the rebels, and he's like, oh, thank goodness you're... And then they start shooting at him, and he goes, wait, you're here to rescue me! Which is such a great, C-3PO line.
Yeah, I mean, it fits his personality, you know. And of course we get, you know, a really cool moment with Ezra where Kallus ends up knocking Zeb out.
He's about to...
Or is he about to?
He kind of knocks him to the ground, and he's about to, do the final blow on him.
Oh, okay.
He's like raising up his weapon at him or whatever. And Ezra does his little force hands, pushes him away.
Which Kanan's like, whoa, I didn't know he could do that, you know. But, you know, protagonist, maybe. A little bit of that, maybe.
I felt it in the moment. So he knocks Kallus off of Zeb before he can kill him. Mm-hmm. And then Kanan goes and grabs Zeb, and they all board the Ghost and try to get out of there. And then one of my favorite parts is Zeb, which he kind of, up to this point, has had a rocky relationship with Ezra. Mm-hmm. And a lot, like I said earlier in one of our last episodes, a lot of fans weren't happy that he left Ezra.
Yeah.
So I feel like this moment when he's like, thanks for the save, and then Kanan's like, it wasn't me, it was him. And he kind of looks at him like, he doesn't say thank you, but it's kind of an unspoken, it's nice that there's development between those two in terms of their relationship. And then Kanan says he's going to train Ezra. Mm-hmm. He said, your formal Jedi training starts tomorrow. And then there's this push in, I don't know if you noticed it, on Kanan, and he's like,
I saw the
unsure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure if I'm ready, I'm not sure if he's ready. But I think for Kanan, when you learn more about him, it's probably more dealing with him.
Yeah. I didn't notice that when I first watched the episode, and then when you watch the full series and you go back and you're like, oh, I didn't understand the significance of that push in.
Yeah. And at the very end, you know, they weren't able to sell the disruptors to get credits. But I guess Kanan listened to Sabine and took 3PO and R2 back to their master, who was revealed to be Bail Organa, which is Leia's daddy. Mm-hmm. And he gives him quite a bit of credits. Quite a bit of credits. I mean, the man's a senator, right?
Yeah.
He's got some money. And then he has that moment between him where I can't remember the saying he tells him. But then Kanan says, isn't that a Jedi saying?
Yeah.
Which, to me, is interesting because Bail wasn't in the Jedi Order, and he wasn't a Jedi anything, but he was alive during that time when it was...
There was a close relationship between the Senate and the Jedi, I think. Because that's why the Jedi existed. They were to protect the Republic, and the Senate is part of the Republic.
And at the very end, it's revealed that... Oh, he also says, you didn't tell him my name, did you? Mm-hmm. And then 3PO says, of course not. And then it's revealed creepily that R2 was recording everything.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
He's like, let me see what you have on your rebels. Or whatever. And there's that shot of him...
in the hallway of his shuttle or...
with R2. And it mirrors... If you put them side by side, it mirrors the ending. The beginning of A New Hope with Leia and R2. When she's putting the plans in or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But out of how many loth cats would you give this episode?
I hadn't watched it in a while, so probably, let's see, I'd give it 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I wrote 6 out of 10.
Did you really?
Yeah. I really like the exploration with Zeb's character.
Yeah.
More on his backstory, and Kallus, his backstory, and the fight between them, and then, like, this, you know, him and Ezra kind of cementing the start of a relationship that's more than just, you stink, let's fight about it. So, like, in Spark Rebellion, that's pretty much the only interaction they had, really. That when he left him.
I think if that could be a slogan for social media, that would be it. You stink, let's fight about it. But in a nicer way.
Yeah.
People are not kind on social media.
Yeah. The toxicity of social media the tagline would be, "You stink, let's fight about it."
Get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Your opinion is wrong. Here's why.
Yeah. Speaking of toxicity, do you want to get into this whole thing I'm about to bring up?
What have you got?
All right. So, I don't know if you guys are aware of AI. You know, our robotic overlords that are gonna someday take us over.
They're not droids, though.
They're not droids. I think they're not as intelligent as droids.
They're not human,
yeah. And of course, if you've seen the whole Glasgow Willy Wonka thing, you know that AI can be deceiving. Anyway, so apparently Google now has partnered with AI. So if you search anything on Google, you will get a generated AI response.
Oh, wow.
Like, if you go on Google right now on your phone, you type in recipe for blah, 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 or whatever, it will say generating AI. And the first response you get is a listing from an AI source. Now, I don't know what source they're using or what AI they're using.
Why would they do that?
I don't know.
That's a separate podcast.
Yeah, that's a separate topic. But anyway, if you type in Star Wars Rebels on Google, the very first response you will get from generated by AI is 10 reasons why Star Wars Rebels is bad. Or why is Star Wars Rebels so bad? One of the questions that first pops up is, why is Rebels so bad? So I went down that rabbit hole for just a second. And Screen Rant, which is not a reliable per se source, it's more of a pop culture thing. They have an article called 10 Harsh Realities of Rewatching Star Wars Rebels 9 years later. Of course, now it's 10 years later.
Yeah.
And if you're new to the show, I would say not to look it up because there are spoilers and I'm not going to go through all 10. But I think it'd just be an interesting discussion. And one of the, critiques of the show is that Star Wars Rebels has a lot of filler. And this is directly from that article. Some episodes are more essential to the plot than others compared to the serialized episodes of Clone Wars.
Okay, so I'm just going to be honest. Every show you ever watch ever has filler.
Mm-hmm.
Every show. And I don't really like to use the word filler.
Right.
Unfortunately, to me, that's what it is. A lot of people think, no, it's just another adventure.
Especially the people that are showrunners of a show, to them, nothing is filler. Everything has important, and every component is important to the story,
and they work so hard on these
stories.
Right,
and the animation and all that. But as a watcher, I would agree with you. Anything you watch, there's going to be something that's maybe not so as important to the development of a character or the plot.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the show. So, if you have an overarching story arc, and all of a sudden it deviates from something, that's filler.
Yeah.
If you have a serialized, let's go on adventures, and, there's not really a cohesive plot, overarching arc, it's harder to pick out filler from that.
Yeah, okay, so, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but, like I said, every show you watch has filler. Avatar. Last Airbender.
Yes.
It has a very heavily overarching plot through each season. There are filler episodes, guys. And that's a good show. But there are filler episodes.
Great Divide. Great Divide is one.
They're there. Now that you said, compared to serialized episode of Clone Wars, I can't speak to that because I haven't seen enough Clone Wars.
Same.
So if there is filler in Clone Wars, let me know. Because I don't know if there is or not. So I can't speak to that one.
The other one is the animation takes some time getting used to. For those that were used, again, to the old Clone Wars models, it gets better throughout. This is from Screen Rant.
I think it's different in Clone Wars. I don't think it's necessarily better or worse. I think it's different.
It's different because Clone Wars was following Genndy Tartakovsky's 2002 2D, and they took that and made it three-dimensional. So it's gonna be a little bit more blocky, a little bit more harsh, compared to Rebels. Where it gets kind of a little bit toxic is where people say, oh, Disney bought it, so now it just looks all cutesy, and it's not as dark, and
Literally the same people that made Clone Wars made this show. For those that don't know, the animation people, most of them were the same. I mean, yeah, you did have new people from Disney, but most of them were the exact same. Just putting that out there. I'm sorry, but it's still Lucasfilm animating the dang thing.
Yeah. The other thing is that there was that whole criticism, I don't know if you remember this, about the thin lightsabers.
Yes.
That was a big thing in the nerd community. Like, you'd have more time to talk about something else.
You'd think other things would piss you off than to be like, the lightsaber's too thin. I'm like, I mean, yeah, if you're used to it, I will say if you're used to it in Clone Wars, and
you know,
I love the way they animated lightsabers in Clone Wars. So it is a little bit jarring when you're comparing the two.
Yeah.
But you can't. It's a different show.
Yeah.
You can't compare the two. It's a totally different show. And I will just say this, the thin lightsabers, they address that. If you look at and I'm not talking about the remastered New Hope. If you go back, because my dad has it, the old original releases of them on VHS tapes, if you look at Luke's lightsaber in New Hope, it's thin. I swear to God, it's thin. So I feel like they were kind of, because everything in the art is based on New Hope at that era.
But I mean, that's 2 of the 10 things that they spoke about in this article. I'm not going to go through their other 8 because it gets kind of spoilery in the article. So, but yeah, I just think comparing it to Clone Wars, I just don't think it's a fair comparison because they're 2 different shows.
Yeah, it'd be like me comparing
the prequels to the original.
Or the new shows they got, The Mandalorian with New Hope. That's decades apart.
Yeah.
Why would you even, like, well, I don't like A New Hope because it doesn't have all these effects. To me, it'd be that way.
Yeah,
like, you can't.
Of course, Lucas keeps changing stuff.
I just think people need to recognize that Star Wars in every medium, because now we've got movies, books, TV,
comics,
cartoon, every medium, it's going to be different. You shouldn't have this. I know everybody has this base of what they think it should be and what they think it should look like, but you just have to recognize it's just going to be, it's different. I mean, it would be boring to see the same old stuff. Like, think of all the, like, they did Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance. They now have the Young Jedi Adventures. Can you imagine if they were all in the animation of Clone Wars? It's boring.
Well, yeah, but I also think that Clone Wars fans would be pleased that they're animated.
But it's boring. Like even Young Jedi Adventures, that needs a different style because it's for preschoolers.
Oh, that's true.
So it's more, and it doesn't look like Rebels. It looks like something totally different. Resistance doesn't look like Rebels. It looks like something totally different.
Yeah.
So I'm all for art being different, but people need to recognize that you can't compare them anything to anything because it's its own thing.
Yeah.
And I've said my soapbox and I'm done.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll keep coming up because, unfortunately, because Clone Wars didn't run for so long, I know it was sort of the gateway to a lot of people that maybe didn't know a lot about Star Wars. It was part of their childhood. When you get into that era, it's gonna keep coming up. It's gonna be like, oh, well, that's not when Clone Wars they did this.
Yeah.
And you know, I haven't watched the any of the new animated shows, but part of me is like, would I watch it and go on Rebels? You know, would I do the same thing? Or
yeah, I thought about watching Resistance actually.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's almost like Rebels in a way, like in terms. See, I just did it in terms of it's not about the rebellion, it's about the resistance. But
yeah, I feel like when you get nostalgia involved, is when people kind of want to bring it back and say, well, in the past, you know, this was good. Let's keep talking about it. And I'm not saying not give credit where credit is due. I'm just saying you need to, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. My opinion doesn't matter. Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, they do. Everybody has an opinion, and if you don't like it, fine. If you like it, fine. You know, I mean, I don't really care for the, what are they calling it now? It's the ones with Rey, and I haven't seen all of those.
The Skywalker Saga?
The Skywalker Saga. I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm not going to sit here and go, whoa, blah, 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 get on my social media and tweet, because it's just not my thing. Mm-hmm. Some people were really into it. Some people aren't.
It's a matter of not being toxic, I think, is the lesson here.
Just,
you know, like what you like.
Yeah.
People like what they like.
Exactly.
It's fine. Anything else after that soapbox?
No, I think I'm good.
Alright, guys, you can follow Rebels Remembered on YouTube and SoundCloud, and we will see you in the next episode.